Welcome to the Herald Democrat Sports Podcast with a Battle of the Axe preview. My name is Jason Della Rosa, and I am the sports editor here at the Herald Democrat. The 2019 football season kicks off on Friday, August 30th, with the 121st Battle of the Axe, featuring the Sherman Bearcats, who will be the hosts at Bearcat Stadium, and they're welcoming the Denison Yellow Jackets, their rivals to the north, for the 121st meeting of this epic rivalry. This is a game kicking off the season for the second straight year. Usually you find it at the end of the season when the teams were in district together, but the latest realignment has forced them to make this a non-district contest to keep the rivalry going, and so we have it to kick off the season. This year's version sees Denison trying to go for its 7th straight victory in the series, and this is a very notable achievement because Denison has never won that many in a row against Sherman. In fact, their current 6-game winning streak is 2 games longer than the record that they hold in the rivalry. They do have a 7-game unbeaten streak. That was from 1942 to 1948. But there were 2 ties in there back when you could actually still tie in high school football. So, and the rules of the axe, if you're not familiar, are if you tie and you hold the axe, you get to keep the axe. So Denison had a win in 1942, then there were back-to-back ties, and then there were 4 more Denison wins. So Denison has held the axe this long, but they have not put together a win streak. This is their longest win streak of all time in the series. Of course, Sherman has had a streak where they held the axe from 1969 until 1981 or 82, excuse me. So that's when Denison broke that streak. That streak also involved 1 tie. So Denison has a long way to go to get to that point. But it is their own personal best, and they're going to look to extend that on Friday in a game, by the way, that for the first time will be seen on statewide television and depending on your dish package, national television, because Fox Sports Southwest will be televising the game as part of its kickoff to the season. So the game is at 7:30 instead of the normal 7 o'clock for most of the Sherman and Denison starts. You got to change that kickoff time for TV when TV wants you to do that. And the game will be shown in its entirety. Last year, they just did live look-ins and highlights as the game was going on, but this is a full game broadcast by the network. They're doing a 2A game on Thursday night, and then they're going to be doing the 5A matchup between Sherman and Denison on Friday night. So if you're not one of the lucky people to be in a packed Bearcat Stadium, you can watch the game on Fox Sports Southwest. And if you're a Bearcat fan, you'll try to watch Sherman get the axe back for the first time since they held it in 2012. And if you're a Denison fan, you'll be trying to see that winning streak continue. Last year's game was a 41-16 Denison win. It's the second straight year that the game has had a lopsided score. Denison also won in 2017, 49-24. So the margin has widened the last couple years. And that's coming off the game 3 years ago in 2016 when it was 35-30 and the game came down to the final minute. So we haven't had that excitement these last couple years, but it should be an interesting matchup because these teams are very similar coming into the season. Obviously, they've had their scrimmages. Denison scrimmaged Argyle and Paris to get ready for this, and Sherman scrimmaged Sanger and Princeton. So that's all we have kind of seen for what they're going to be having going into the season. But when you look at the personnel, they are very similar in that both of the offenses have a lot of people returning. They both return 4 of the 5 starters on the offensive line. They both are built around standout running backs, and we'll get to them in a second. And they both have new quarterbacks this year. So obviously when you're talking about an offense, the quarterback is the fulcrum, and you start there, and that's where we'll look at the changes with both of these teams. Denison had Cade Gordy as their starter last year. That was his first year start during his senior year. And this year, Zaylen Wimbish, who was the backup last year, was a starter on defense and also a starting wide receiver. He's going to make the shift behind center. And sophomore Caleb Hebner, who transferred from Durant, he's entering slated as the backup. So there's kind of a pecking order that we know at Denison. At Sherman, it's a little more interesting. Blaze Benson was a 2-year starter for the Bearcats after transferring following his sophomore year at Texoma Christian. And there are 2 juniors that are battling to be the starting quarterback for Sherman. Tate Bethel, who was a starting wide receiver for them last year, and Trenton Harden, who transferred from Irving MacArthur. And Coach J.D. Martinez says that's a competition. That could be a competition that goes into the season, depending on how things shake out. So we may see both of them play. That's still to be determined. But that's a true quarterback competition, and so we'll see how things go there. The offenses for both will revolve around the running backs. Mike Brown is Sherman's senior running back. He had a breakout year last year as a junior, ran for almost 1,500 yards, and kind of made that offense go. He's the first team all-district selection, and they're expecting him to kind of shoulder the load again. For Denison, Jadarian Price was a freshman last year, and he kind of broke onto the scene. The first game, obviously, if his career was in the Battle of the Ax, since it was the first game, he ran for 141 yards and 2 touchdowns to help get that win. And he had a great season as well. A little over 1,400 yards, 16 touchdowns. And so he's expected to continue that, not just this year, but the next couple of years, being only a sophomore. And he was recently rated by the recruiting sites as the top player in the class of 2022, as the #1 player in the state of Texas. And his most recent scholarship offers include Texas, Ohio State, and USC. So he's getting a lot of national attention. If there is one area Sherman has the edge on offense, it's at receiver. Denison is replacing all of their receivers. Not that they would necessarily be throwing a lot because they're a run-based offense, but those guys are new. The guys returning for Sherman were all stars last year. Junior Sean Husband, junior Jacoby Hunt, senior Gage Smith came on towards the end, had a really big effort in the playoff game, the bi-district loss to Magnolia West. And if Bethel is not the quarterback, he's going to see some receiver time as well. So Denison's a little more inexperienced. Keelan Vaughn is a junior who's going to be seeing some time on offense in addition to his work at cornerback on defense. Stone Lemming, Jalik Lewis, who's another transfer from Durant, Keebler Wagner. Those are guys that are brand new to the varsity and in some cases brand new to the offensive side of the ball. So that'll be interesting. Defense will be kind of the same as well because both sides have some key returning players, but some key spots were also left open due to graduation. For Sherman, Coach Martinez feels that the watching the defensive line and how they come together is the big thing going into the season. They lost 2 all-district players in TK Walton and Isaiah Jones, but they do have Daniel Maibu and Ivan Cavillo. Those 2 guys are seniors this year, and they were all-district selections last year as well. Denison's defensive line is led by Jordan Hunter. He's a senior and is a 4-year starter. He's in the middle of that line, and he makes things go. They have some more questions going with some sophomores at the end spots. Jakaylin Fields and Landry Matzenberg are 2 sophomores that have jumped into the starting lineup, but they do have some depth there. Austin Patterson's a senior who's a starter last year, so he can fill in if they don't like the way things are looking. Linebacker for Sherman, Ethan Bedgood, is a 3-year starter. He's 2 years at linebacker. He's a guy who's going to kind of lead that unit. They've got some new guys there because graduation kind of hit them kind of hard, but they think there's some pieces there. Brandon Benny is a guy to watch, very physical, hard-hitting junior who saw some, played last year, but he's really going to step into a full-time role this year. So he's a guy to watch. Matthias Coleman's a transfer from TCS. He'll contribute. He's a junior as well. He'll contribute on both sides of the ball. Linebacker is where you'll find him. And then the secondaries, I think, are both really good. Gage Smith at safety is back. He's a 3-year starter for Sherman, and he'll be joined again by Benji Amayabu, who was an all-district player last year as a sophomore in the secondary. Both of the Sherman corners are new, So that is going to be interesting. Of course, like I said, Denison does not throw the ball, so that may be that may not be as big of an issue, at least in the opener. Keelan Vaughn is the guy who leads the Denison secondary. He is he had 7 interceptions last year, returned 3 of them for touchdowns. He's a 3-year starter. He's been starting since his freshman year. The interesting thing about the Jackets on that side of the ball is with Wimbish moving out of the secondary and into more of a full-time role only on offense, that's going to be interesting. And Javonte Briscoe is moving up to linebacker after being an all-district safety. So there are some guys that do have starting experience back there. Camden Wheeler started last year as a sophomore. So it'll be interesting to see how some of these new guys fit in. Some of the names to kind of keep an eye on. Jaleel Lewis again. Keegan Pruitt is a sophomore who might be out there at corner. So there's a couple more question marks there on their defense. So we'll see. So we'll see how, Battle of the Axe is really tough game to make that your first game. So we'll see if the jitters get overcome. And the last thing to touch on, we mentioned the score last year was 41-16, and the score the year before that was 49-24, both in Denison's favor. And the scores look lopsided, and final scores go, they are. A thing to keep in mind for this game is that both games have been close at halftime. These are not runaway scores right from the start. So it's very cliche to say, but the third quarter is probably going to decide this one again. Sherman has been in these games, whether it was at Bearcat 2 years ago or at Denison last year. There's basically been a 5 or 6 minute span in the third quarter where things just totally break down for them and things totally go right for Denison, and a touchdown lead has become a 3-touchdown lead, and the next thing you know, you look up and the game's over. And so that's the biggest thing for Sherman is I think that they know they can play with Denison. They've done it through the first halves of these games. It's finding a way to get to that fourth quarter, either with a lead or close enough to make something happen at the end. And that was the 2016 game. It was back and forth. Denison scored with a couple minutes left, and then Sherman had the ball in Denison territory as time ran out with the throw to the end zone that was intercepted, and that ended that game. But I don't think the final might be as indicative as it has been. I think Sherman's got a lot back, especially on offense. Depending on how things shake out, they could have up to 9 starters back. It's at least going to be 8, and so I think we'll see a good showing there. Weather is always a factor, and it's next week and the days leading up to the game. There looks like there could be some rain, and since we're playing at Bearcat Stadium, that's also a situation where natural grass, you don't know how that's going to react, and if it's a muddy track, that could affect both these teams. We may see a lot of running and less passing. So it's always going to be exciting. It's going to have everybody in the state of Texas watching, because it's going to be on again Fox Sports Southwest with a 7:30 kickoff, and someone's going to be happy when they win. Someone's going to be unhappy because of a loss, and we'll see if Denison can get that 7th straight win, or if Sherman can get the Axe back for the first time since 2012. I hope you enjoyed this Battle of the Axe preview. Again, Jason Della Rosa, sports editor for the Herald Democrat, signing off for this Battle of the Axe preview.